Hi, I'm Rara, and today we are going to be discussing a brand new book I just read that is not brand new, but it's brand new to me, called The Hidden Messages in Water. This is written by Masaru Emoto. So this is a lovely book all about water and its impact on the human psyche, consciousness, and body, and also the impact of water on our world and our impact on water and how this impacts the world. So I took a few notes about this book, and I'll also try to refer to some quotes as well as I discuss, but let's just begin with my main takeaway. And I would say is really the thesis of the book, that love and gratitude are the most powerful force in the universe. And that essentially how we express love and gratitude to water, it is a mirror for how water loves us and appreciates the world. So the reason why he even got into analyzing this message from water and all these different messages is because Masaru Emoto, he studied international relations at a university in Japan, and then it's Yokohama Municipal University, and yeah, he studied international relations, and then he established his own corporation in the mid-80s, and he studied alternative medicine in 1992, and it doesn't say the exact date, but it discusses it in the book, that he began taking images of water using a camera and microscopes and freezing water and taking images of the water. So this book is super interesting for a lot of reasons, but essentially he claims that when you take an image of water, it responds in a different way according to the energy that is around it. So one thing he discusses, not as much in the book, but he mentions that even the observer has an influence on water, and essentially that the observer making an observation is also being observed. So I'm looking at water and I'm like, I wonder what this snowflake looks like. The water is also looking back at me, and it will change its response according to the energy from the observer, essentially. So he just mentions this because the main point of his book was to have, him being the same observer, try to be as neutral as possible, which is, it's not super clear how, this just brings me to a quick question of, how do we know that it wasn't his energy that he was capturing on the camera? So if he is just he really believes that in the power of a word, if he believes in this so much, how do you know that the water isn't just capturing his belief? But he does say that a lot of people have done this experiment since him, all with ranging energies, and that they've had similar results. So essentially, the reason why I say love and gratitude are the most powerful forces of the universe, because he analyzed all these images of water crystals. And so essentially in his experiments that he talks about in this particular book, he talks more about words, but he also mentions how images can have a different influence. But he would take a sheet of paper and write love and gratitude, and then he would freeze water on top of it, and then he would return, take a picture, and he said that it was the most beautiful snowflake he's ever seen in the whole world. And then he would do another experiment where he would write the word you fool on this piece of paper, freeze it, and it would become out as, well, he said a lot of the time with more negative words that it wouldn't even crystallize, that it would just kind of leave like a frost, or also he would also say sometimes like it would just leave a distorted snowflake, and it was super interesting just to think about even like the language that he was using. I don't remember if he said distorted or deformed. Which I also should mention, like I said, he's from Japan. This was originally written in Japanese. So there's also questions of, I wonder what the real word and the actual definition of the word that he used was. So he starts the book off by questioning, where does water come from? And he essentially follows this theory that water is from different planets, or that it came to Earth through a comet or like a meteor shower. And he does mention like the Great Flood, and like he kind of goes about the history of water itself and humans' relationship to it. And something interesting that he mentions is that water comes in from space still today. And he thinks that that's more evidence of why this theory of water came to us as like essentially an alien force. And the fact that water still comes today, he thinks that that's like validation of this argument that it once came a lot at once. And I believe he connects this to the idea of a great flood, and this might be in a cause for it. Another super interesting fact that he shared is that when babies come out of the womb, they're 90% water. That blew my mind. And then, I also didn't know this, he talks about how the average person is 70% water, but that's also at the average age, and that older people have like more like, I can't remember if it was like 50% water or 30, I can't remember, but essentially that you begin life with a lot of water in your body, and then you grow up and you get less and less. I never knew this. This really surprised me. And so essentially he connects this to how water is like essentially one of our life forces, which I thought was super interesting. If you've never heard of the concept of life force, it's essentially the idea that there's like this invisible energy in our bodies, which what keep us alive. So I've studied yoga, and a lot of yogis practice pranayama, which is like the movement of your life force. And they connect the life force more so to breath. So I thought it was super interesting that he makes this argument that essentially water is our life force. And I've always kind of thought of water in this way as well, like just like how once we die, our body's decomposing is to like have a lack of water in the body. I don't know, it was super interesting to me. And so he goes into how like water is so necessary for life on Earth, yet we take it so for granted, and it's not even something that people in like privileged countries where water is easily accessible, it's not even something that we often even think about, and that essentially he kind of talks about like illness and disease a lot, and coughs, that a lack of love and appreciation to water and to other beings with water in them, to water in general, that it can essentially cause illness in oneself, and that love and gratitude are like a healing force. And he kind of goes into this whole idea that if water is photographed and proven to and shown, let's not use proven because I would say he's a scientist, without the traditional certifications, right? So I think that it still has a lot of validity to it. He obviously tries to go about this experiment very scientifically, by like using the same observations and having controls for variables throughout the process and whatnot. But he does not have like maybe this would traditionally be biology. He doesn't have a like a doctorate or whatever in biology. This was so distracting from my point, but he essentially argues that water is a life force and that it must be respected and cherished and appreciated. And if water is like communicating these difference of messages through its images, then it changes how it functions in our body. And another interesting experiment that he did is taking images of water that are from natural bodies of water versus have been sanitized. And like a natural body of water, much closer resemblance to the image of love and gratitude versus the tap water in Tokyo that has chlorine in it. It would not even make a crystal at all. It just kind of made like cracked circles. It almost looked like dewdrops. And he kind of makes this connection of just the calling. This is like essentially a calling of water to us to care more for it, to love and appreciate it more, and that our words, our energy, our consciousness towards this entity significantly impacts and changes its influence on us and like the larger environment. He also talked about like these situations where someone like prayed over the water, over a natural body of water that had a lot of trash around it before, and a Shinto, excuse me if I'm butchering Japanese, trying my best from the few vocab words I've learned from animes, the Shinto priest, and prayed over this body of water, and it looked different from before versus after. So before they prayed over it, it was like polluted, and they took an image of this. No, they took a sample from the water and then froze it, and then they prayed over it, and then they took another sample, took an image, and then like the one where it was prayed over looked different from the one that was not prayed over. So all of this, in conclusion, one of the biggest takeaways is really like portraying the importance of love and gratitude. It's not exactly just positivity, but just kind of, he goes into the idea that like love and gratitude are like a regenerative force in our world, and this is like the life force. This is what upholds the life force, love and gratitude. And you know, even just the way that we think and what we're saying, what we're putting into the world, it magnifies, it comes back. So to just be super intentional and to just appreciate water more. I think personally this book made me so happy to read, and I really do want to wrap this up soon, but there's a river in my hometown. It's called the Huron River. I live in Ypsilanti, Michigan. This is where I'm from. I was born here, and whenever I come back home to visit my family, I always go to my favorite park, Riverside Park. And the Huron River is just like laid out in front of you. There's ducks, there's geese, there's a little bridge, there's a long hill with bumps on it, and there's park and trees. It's so beautiful. And then when you walk up to the river and look up closely, there are these tiny bubbles, and they're PFAS, aka, I don't like this word, but they're called forever chemicals because essentially big businesses that use these chemicals, just dump them into fresh water, which is insane because I live in Michigan and like we have the Great Lakes, and this is like one of the largest reservoirs of fresh water. So for dumping to occur here, it just blows my mind every day. And I had a friend in high school whose mom was like working on this, and I don't know, like it's been like 5 years. We're not that cool anymore, but like the PFAS are still there, and so it would just really make me angry whenever I would go to this river. But I love this river. It's literally my favorite park in the city, and I'll just always go there, and I'm always grateful to be there, and I literally would pray for the water. I'm just like, and I would also just talk to the water like, yo, bro, I'm so sorry that my fellow humans have done this to you. And I'm gonna learn how to get this ish out of you. And if it's not me, I'm sending so much energy and love to the person that figures it out, because this is a problem and we can't just keep doing this. And then I remember like sometimes I would just walk away or sometimes I would just do it more simple, like, God, please cleanse this water. Please help me to cleanse it. Please help me to be a cleansing force in this water. And sometimes I would just kind of walk away like, they're just going to keep dumping this in there. But it's not true. The world is going to change. The world is so changing. Like, and when I just really even think about the fact that they've been pouring chemicals in the water, it's because it's a tradition and it started mindlessly or without an intention or without awareness of how important fresh water is, and that this ignorance is not going to be a more powerful force in the world than love and gratitude. So that's what I'm all about, and I'm spreading it, and this powerful force is just going to like fucking take over, and I don't have to keep worrying about ignorance and greed and pollution, because like humans are just so capable. And that's kind of another point of this book, is he really talks about the importance of human beings and how powerful we are, because the way that we're able to communicate with water, take a photograph of it, share, communicate amongst each other about this, like consciousness, especially in humans, is something so beautiful and unique, and it gives us so much power. And I really feel like, he goes and talks about this in the beginning of the book as well, just like the chaos and the weight of the world right now, which I think is funny because I don't know when he wrote this, but it's not that new, right? And essentially that we are just so capable of being the change we wish to see in the world, and that's what I'm all about. So I really love this book. If it interests you at all, I 12 out of 10 recommend, and I hope you enjoyed this book review and reflection with me. Peace.